I'm reading from Answer to Job by C.G. Jung, paragraphs 669 and 670. The Book of Enoch, written around 100 BC, goes into considerably more detail. It gives a revealing account of the advance of the sons of God into the world of men, another prefiguration which has been described as the fall of the angels. Whereas according to Genesis, Yahweh resolved that his spirit should not abide in man forever, and that men should not live to be hundreds of years old as they had before, the sons of God, by way of compensation, fell in love with the beautiful daughters of men. This happened at the time of the giants. Enoch relates that after conspiring with one another, 200 angels, under the leadership of Samiazaz, descended to earth, took the daughters of men to wife, and begot with them giants 3,000 ells long. The angels, among whom Azazel particularly excelled, taught mankind the arts and sciences. They proved to be extraordinarily progressive elements who broadened and developed man's consciousness. Just as the wicked Cain had stood for progress as contrasted with the stay-at-home Abel. In this way, they enlarged the significance of man to gigantic proportions, which points to an inflation of the cultural consciousness at that period. An inflation, however, is always threatened by a counterstroke from the unconscious, and this actually did happen in the form of the deluge. So corrupt was the earth before the deluge that the giants consumed all the acquisitions of men, and then began to devour each other, while men in their turn devoured the beasts, so that the earth laid accusation against the lawless ones. Paragraph 670. The invasion of the human world by the sons of God therefore had serious consequences, which make Yahweh's precautions prior to his appearance on the earthly scene the more understandable. Man was completely helpless in face of this superior divine force. Hence it is of the greatest interest to see how Yahweh behaves in this matter. As the later draconian punishment proves, it was a not unimportant event in the heavenly economy when no less than 200 of the sons of God departed from the paternal household to carry out experiments on their own in the human world. One would have expected that information concerning this mass exodus would have trickled through to the court, quite apart from the fact of divine omniscience, but nothing of the sort happened. Only after the giants had long been begotten and had already started to slaughter and devour mankind did 4 archangels, apparently by accident, hear the weeping and wailing of men and discover what was going on earth. One really does not know which is the more astonishing, the bad organization of the angelic hosts or the faulty communications in heaven. Be that as it may, this time the archangels felt impelled to appear before God with the following peroration. All things are naked and open in thy sight, and thou seest all things, and nothing can hide itself from thee. Thou seest what Azazel hath done, who taught all the unrighteousness on earth, and revealed the eternal secrets which are preserved in heaven. And enchantments hath Samiazaz taught, to whom thou hast given authority to bear rule over his associates. And thou knowest all things before they come to pass, and thou seest these things, and thou dost suffer them. And thou dost not say to us what we are to do to them in regard to these. Footnote, Enoch 7:3-6. And a second footnote, Enoch 9:5-11. Paragraph 671. Either all that the archangels say is a lie, or Yahweh, for some incomprehensible reason, has drawn no conclusions from his omniscience, or, What is more likely, the archangels must remind him that once again he has preferred to know nothing of his omniscience. At any rate, it is only on their intervention that retaliatory action is released on a global scale. But it is not really a just punishment, seeing that Yahweh promptly drowns all living creatures with the exception of Noah and his relatives. This intermezzo proves that the sons of God are somehow more vigilant, more progressive, and more conscious than their father. Yahweh's subsequent transformation is, therefore, to be rated all the higher. The preparations for his incarnation give one the impression that he has really learnt something from experience and is setting about things more consciously than before. Undoubtedly, the recollection of Sophia has contributed to this increase of consciousness. Parallel with this, the revelation of the metaphysical structure becomes more explicit, whereas in Ezekiel and Daniel, we find only vague hints about the quaternity and the Son of Man. Enoch gives us clear and detailed information on these points. The underworld, a sort of Hades, is divided into 4 hollow places which serve as abodes for the spirits of the dead until the Last Judgment. 3 of these hollow places are dark, but 1 is bright and contains a fountain of water. This is the abode of the righteous. Paragraph 672. With statements of this type, we enter into a definitely psychological realm, namely that of mandala symbolism, to which also belong the ratios 1:3 and 3:4. The quadripartite Hades of Enoch corresponds to a chthonic quaternity, which presumably stands in everlasting contrast to a pneumatic or heavenly one. The former corresponds in alchemy to the quaternio of the elements, the latter to a fourfold or total aspect of the deity, as for instance Barbello, Colorbas, Mercurius Quadratus, and the four-faced gods all indicate. In fact, Enoch in his vision sees the 4 faces of God. 3 of them engaged in praising, praying, and supplicating, but the 4th in fending off the Satans and forbidding them to come before the Lord of Spirits to accuse them who dwell on earth. Paragraph 674. The vision shows us an essential differentiation of the God image. God now has 4 faces, or rather 4 angels of his face, who are 4 hypostases or emanations, of which one is exclusively occupied in keeping his elder son Satan, now changed into many, away from him, and in preventing further experiments after the style of the Job episode. The Satans still dwell in the heavenly regions, since the fall of Satan has not yet occurred. The above-mentioned proportions are also suggested here by the fact that 3 of the angels perform holy or beneficial functions, while the 4th is a militant figure who has to keep Satan at bay. Paragraph 675. This quaternity has a distinctly pneumatic nature and is therefore expressed by angels who are generally pictured with wings, i.e., as aerial beings. This is the more likely as they are presumably the descendants of Ezekiel's 4 seraphim. The doubling and separation of the quaternity into an upper and a lower one, like the exclusion of the Satans from the heavenly court, points to a metaphysical split that had already taken place. But the pleromatic split is in its turn a symptom of a much deeper split in the divine will. The Father wants to become the Son. God wants to become man. The amoral wants to become exclusively good. The unconscious wants to become consciously responsible. So far, Everything exists only in status nascendi. Footnote, Enoch 47. Footnote, of the four beings who were like white men, three take Enoch by the hand, while the other seizes a star and hurls it into the abyss. Footnote, three had animal faces, one a human face. Paragraph 676. Enoch's unconscious is vastly excited by all this, and its contents burst out in a spate of apocalyptic visions. It also causes him to undertake the peregrinatio, the journey to the four quarters of heaven and to the center of the earth, so that he draws a mandala with his own movements, in accordance with the journeys of the alchemistic philosophers and the corresponding fantasies of our modern unconscious.